I am Petya Rasheva, a Stanford Late alumna, and you are with the Paths to Power. Today, I am talking to Nathalie Beccard, the Undersecretary of the Synod of Bishops at the Vatican, named by Pope Francis. Sister Beccard is the highest-ranking woman at the Vatican and the first one to gain the right of vote at such a high-level conference. It is an honor to welcome you today. Welcome, Nathalie.
Thank you so much. Good morning.
Nathalie, would you please give us a brief overview of your path so far?
Yes, so I am French. I grew up in different parts of France with my family moving. And I studied in a business school, HEC in France, with a specialization in entrepreneurship. And after my studies, I didn't really know what I will do exactly. And I wanted to serve. And I went to Lebanon for 1 year as a volunteer, teaching in this country after a difficult situation of civil war. And that's where I began to think more, as a Catholic, that you have different possible paths. And I began to think that maybe religious life could be a life for me, even if before I have always thought I will be married. And meeting with people in Lebanon, I began to be open to that. I came back to France. I worked during 2 years as a consultant in a marketing communication agency. And then I decided to become a sister, a nun, and I entered my community where I am since many years, the Xavier Sisters. It's a little bit, maybe everybody knows a little bit about the Pope, Pope Francis, who is a Jesuit, and we are kind of female version of the Jesuit. And when I entered my community after my initial formation, I started to work and to ministry with young people, mainly young adults in different ways, in campus ministry, at universities, with kids from poor urban areas, from families coming from migration. And I also studied philosophy and theology alongside sociology. And with all that background, I was called to work for the French Episcopal Conference, where I was the first woman, in fact, appointed as director of the National Office for Youth and for Vocations. And after that, when I have finished my term, I didn't really know what will be the next step. I took I asked my community to have a kind of sabbatical. It was a time to reflect on what could be the next step. And I discerned that it would be good to go back to study theology and to get a specialization in what we call ecclesiology. So it's a reflection about what is the church. And I did a research at Boston College in the States. So I spent almost 2 years first in Canada and in the United States. And from that was a great surprise because I was supposed to begin something else, but I was appointed by Pope Francis to work for this General Secretariat of the Synod, where I am now since exactly 3 years. I began on this day 3 years ago. As Undersecretary, that means number 2 in this, we can say, kind of department of the Vatican.
Nathalie, you were recently named by Forbes as one of the 50 over 50 most influential women across Europe, Middle East, and Africa, even though you chose the path of devotion. So looking back, what do you consider has been critical in your path?
Well, when I look back, I would have never imagined the life I have and where I will be now. So it has been like a succession of, surprises and especially calls, because since I entered religious life, I didn't really look for a job or for a position. It has been a succession of I was doing something and then I was called to do something else. It has been from my superior in my community knowing me and feeling what could be the needs, and she proposed me, well, maybe I see you could do that, or a call from the bishops, or even now from the Pope. But I would say what has been critical for me, it's not just, well, you can have different opportunities and people can think that you can do something, but each time before saying yes, and I think what has been critical for me is really to discern and to feel, to know you well, who you are, what is your experience, your training, your capacities, but at the same time being open maybe to something new you never imagined. And I have done, I remember after my studies in theology, it was my superior who asked me that they wanted to have a sister from our community to work with students in a big university near Paris as director of the chaplaincy. I never thought about that. I didn't really want to do that, because I thought about something else, but taking time to pray, to reflect, to discuss, and also to have a dialogue with her, I have been able to say, okay, yes. And in fact, I can really thank her, because it has been a wonderful experience for me. And I have discovered that I could be in this position with many things I have received, and I really enjoyed to work with students. And from that, I was called to become the national director for campus ministry, university pastoral care. And so what I would say is, at the same time, really to try to discover your deep identity, your vocation. We can say what you feel is the purpose of your life and where you can serve better, because for me that it's not a matter of career, or it's just a matter where I can serve better with who I am, because the role of the church and as a sister is ready to serve the people, but with who you are and what you have received to give back. So it's to know yourself well, to take time to reflect, including in silence or in prayer, but also in conversation with others that sometimes can open up for you some ways you never thought before. And so I think for me, that's what has been critical, and then it's not to do something that will be completely out of who you are, but also not just to repeat or to be in your own boxes. And then you discover, yes, maybe there are things, I would have never imagined I will be there here at the Vatican. But when I was called by Pope Francis to come here, I could reflect, okay, I have already different kind of experience, and it has a meaning, because what I am doing here is also something coming from something deep in me. For instance, it's a very, in this position, it's very international. We have to deal with the local churches from all over the world. I travel a lot. Each day I meet people from so many different countries. And I can reflect back that from the beginning of my studies, I was really energized each time I was in contact with people from other countries, other cultures. So the international dimension that I really live in a very strong way now has been present from my past, but now it is unfolding in a new way. And I think for me, and what I can advise is really this path of reflecting on your own path, your identity, but at the same time with an open vision and being also open to calls or requests or opportunities that can come.
And Natalie, in our preliminary conversation, you mentioned that there are bridges between the religious life and the civil life, and perhaps one such is your entrepreneurial background as well.
Yes, and I can say, really what something I carry on very much, and that is also part of we can say the DNA of my community as Xavier's sister, is really to build bridge between those who are in the church, those who are far from the church, between different dimensions of life. And with my background, as you mentioned, trend, I studied at HEC. I have an understanding of the business world, and what I have learned in entrepreneurship has helped me a lot in my work for the church, to work with young people with this pastoral work, but I had to manage team, to organize projects, and also because I think it's critical also to all your life to have an ongoing formation. It's not enough, even if you do good studies at the beginning, it's not enough. You need to continue to learn all your life with humility. You need that. And so I have learned a lot from the experience of the corporate world, also from the world of NGO, for instance, that helped me in my ministry in the church. And at the same time, I see that our experience as church, and for instance, now working at this General Secretariat for the Synod, I am involved in the organization of a big process for the whole church convoked by the Pope that is called the Synod, that is supposed to involve all the baptized, and that means all the dioceses, bishops' conferences from all continents, all countries. So it's a big thing, with also some assembly in Rome, with delegates from all the countries. So what I have learned from outside has helped me a lot, but our experience as church, now doing this rather innovative process with our methodology to really listen to each other, it's also a very rich experience that can inspire other people. And being in Rome very regularly, I also have to meet some groups, of political leaders or business leaders who are coming here, and they're interesting to discuss with people at the Vatican. And I can see through the discussions that, yes, our experience as church can also benefit for others. So it's building bridge, and with this core view of mutuality and reciprocity. And I think that's what for me is very, very important. Even if you are in a leadership position, okay, you have a lot to give, but you have a lot to receive, to learn. And you do great things, never alone, but always together with others. And the more you can dialogue with people from different perspectives, because we all have our own lenses. And so what I have learned that is very important is you take always better decisions when you don't take decision alone, or just with people who are looking at things like you. And especially in our very complex world nowadays, and with so many crises and so many challenges. And I can quote, for instance, the problem of climate change or violence and war. It's nobody alone can face that. So we need to be together, people of goodwill, the church, religious leaders, with also government, people from business leaders. If we manage to create those synergies, then we can do better things. And that's also how I try to experience my service here at the Vatican.
And Natalie, you talked a lot about purpose and finding the purpose. What advice would you give to people who are trying to find their purpose and their meaning?
Well, I would say it's, I think everybody has a unique vocation, a unique purpose. In a way, we are created not as numbers or with a copy and paste way. We are all unique. Each one is very unique. And discovering really the purpose of your life, the meaning of your life, because that's what gives you joy, energy. And the first thing is that we are all created to live, but to live also to give a contribution, to serve, to love and serve the other, to make an impact, but not in the same way. So I think for young people, and that was my main question when I was young, it was, what is really the purpose of my life? How to make the good choices, how to choose really the job that will be meaningful for me, or also to make some life choices. And it's not easy. You need to reflect on yourself, to review or to reread your experience. And as I say, it's also when you dialogue with others, when you discover the path of others, that you can be inspired, not just to copy and paste others, but to discern and to, it's a creative process, I think. Like in the art, you learn the techniques, but then a true artwork is unique. And that's the same for the purpose of our life. And it's through the events, through what we are doing, that we can see what gives us more joy, energy, what leads us in a peaceful way. That are signs that it's a good way. And so I will really encourage the younger, but at all stages of our life, we have never finished to discern our way. And as I say, it's never alone. Even if you need, nobody else can see things for you. And it's also at a time to take risk. And I would say maybe that's what is the most difficult for us today. We would like to secure before our path, or to know the path before engaging in one way or another. But when you feel that's really your call and your purpose to go there, then you can take risk and experiment and see if it's you are confirmed to go in this way, or maybe, that's how we learn. We all have our failures, or but it's not a problem. And so that's why, because the society and sometimes also our environment puts so much pressure on us, that sometimes it could be easier, just to do what the other people want to impose us, instead of choosing freely from your deep desire.
That's very interesting. Thank you, Natalie. And I mentioned earlier the recognition by Forbes that just arrived last month. What does it mean to you to be one of the over 50 most influential women in the region?
Well, as what I have learned through all my experience, as I have tried to highlight it, I wouldn't be here or have all this experience without so many others who have supported me, from which I have learned, who have opened paths. So I can't receive this recognition just for myself. So the meaning for me and what I would like, okay, it highlights one sister, a nun from the Catholic Church in this list, but I really would like that it highlight also the work or the contributions of so many other sisters, who maybe they are less visible, but they are doing so much work at the grassroots, or women before me who have opened paths. So for me, I receive this recognition in a way, not for me, but for the contribution of, especially of sisters in the Catholic Church, and also for a recognition that the Church is also a contributor to contributes to the life of so many. And that's for me the surprise is, oh, in that kind of list, they don't put only women from the business world or from artists or other. They are interesting also to put someone from the Catholic Church. So I receive it also as a recognition for yes, the service of the Catholic Church that we can see, and we can see also now how you know, Pope Francis is recognized by so many leaders, also as a leader to serve the world, because all together we have the same, I think, as human beings, we are called to build a common home for all on this earth. And we need the contribution of all kinds of people. And that's how I receive this recognition from Forbes list.
How surprised were you to find your name in the list?
Yes, I was surprised because, you know, I didn't imagine that, and I didn't, but it's, you know, what I learned from, it's the same. I was so surprised when I was appointed here by Pope Francis, and I received so many messages from people who were very joyful and grateful to see a woman there. And I know that's my experience, and that's also all the studies everywhere in the world, you know, shows that you are always better when you lead together men and women, and not only men. And for peace building, we know also the best companies are those who have more women in leadership position. It's not because just women are better, but it's because we are better when, as I said, you are not just the same with the same, but with a kind of diversity. And that's why I think it's interesting what Forbes is doing. It's to highlight also the great contribution of so many women. And after 50, because it's also with the experience of life, and I'm surprised how really there is a very strong desire today from so many people from around the world to have more women in, as I say, in leadership position or able to contribute, because we know it will be better for everybody. And so I receive also this recognition, you know, as for the society, but also for the church, as an urgent need for change to involve more and more women.
Thank you, Nathalie, for this fantastic conversation and the beautiful end. Thank you very much on my behalf and on behalf of my classmates at the Stanford Lead.
Well, thank you so much for this great joy also to share with you, and for what you are doing. Thank you.
Thank you.